I feel like I'm tracing the footsteps of someone I've never met before. We walk in and out of rooms searching for the last rib. Dove bites on her thumbnail as she searches through dressers and drawers, all of which have a lingering presence attached to them. It relieves and unnerves me that we have not seen the boy or the witch today, despite all the commotion we've been causing, but I try to count it as a small blessing instead of an omen. I pad slowly through the hall as Dove stomps through it. We pass the doors of rooms that have already been ravaged, all except for one, but Dove passes by it completely. Curiously, I pause in front of it. Is she not going to search this one? Dove turns back when she no longer hears the click of my nails behind her. Her eyes catch on the door I've stopped in front of. That's nothing but a bathroom. Bathroom? I give Dove a small woof. It's nothing special. Dove's brows furrow, but she went through quite a fuss to have it made just for the drain in her pretty tub to stop working. Dove sweeps past me and bursts through the door. Oh. The sound of dripping water echoes in the small room. Dove's feet make a wet splashing sound on the red tiles. When she steps further into the bathroom, the red sticks to her feet, revealing the pristine white tiles beneath. I hesitate to follow Dove in because I finally spot the source of the ruby liquid that stains the floor. The tang of metal fills the air and blood drips over the edge of a porcelain tub that sits under a tall window. I take a deep breath in and carefully step past the doorway. The ground is slick and the air is moist. I concentrate on every step I take so I don't fall flat on my face. Dove stands before the tub. When I finally reach her side, I carefully lift my front paws up on the edge of the tub and peer into it. I can see my face clearly in the still surface of the crimson pool that fills the tub to the brim. It just became like this one day. And Dove's face is strained. It looks like she would rather choke on her words than say them out loud. I didn't want to know what would happen if I tried to put my hand in it. Dove inhales deeply in preparation, then pulls up the sleeve of her dress to her shoulder. I throw a nervous glance at the cuts across her skin that are still freshly scabbed over. Pray nothing in here likes the taste of flesh. Dove lets out a small gasp when she dips only her fingers into the blood. She rips her hand away instinctively and breathes shallowly. It's warm. A shiver crawls up my spine. The stickiness under my paws begins to make me feel uncomfortable. Dove presses her eyes shut for a second, then dips her arm back in. I can see goosebumps rise on Dove's arm before it sinks into the red. She goes slow until she reaches the bottom of the tub. Her arm shifts as she searches for the drain. The sleeve of her dress slips off her shoulder and falls into the blood. Red bleeds into the white fabric. I hear Dove's breath hitch when she finds something. My whole body is wound up tight. The tension in the air is thick enough to cut with a knife. The sound of the dripping faucet haunts me. Immediately, something at the end of the tub makes my eyes snap to it. I let out a loud cry. Dove jumps and looks at me before she whips her neck around to the small sound of bubbling. We both watch in horror as something beneath the surface of the blood begins to breathe into life. The bubbles begin to crawl towards Dove, pulling a shriek from my throat. Dove grits her teeth and plunges her arm deeper into the pool of scarlet. Sweat runs down her pale skin as she concentrates intensely on unlodging whatever was blocking the drain. I whimper as I watch the bubbling move closer and closer. Dove releases a shaky breath, but she still doesn't pull her arm out. The bubbles are just a breath away from brushing against Dove's arm. She lets out a sharp hiss and grits her teeth. Get out! I latch my teeth onto the back of Dove's dress and rip her away from the tub. I throw us onto the slippery tiles. Blood splashes all over us. It takes me a moment to catch my breath when my senses slowly return to me. I hear the sound of gurgling. I look to my side. Dove lies next to me, curled in a ball. Her eyes are squeezed shut, her chest rising and falling heavily. Cradled in her red-covered hands is a rib bone. The buzzing noise that arises this time does not surprise me, but the merciless insistence of it does cause me to pin my ears to my head with a whimper. When we once again stand before Hypatia's body, we're covered in much more blood than when we started. Her body has also started acting more like a corpse. Flies crawl over the woman's blotchy skin, and the sour smell of rot now invades my nose, making it wrinkle in discomfort. Bringing the missing ribs feels like it's broken some kind of spell on the body, like it had been sitting in time's blind spot. and now we're placing it back under its harsh light once again. Perhaps this is why Dove now hesitates. She clutches the rib bones with a white-knuckled grip. I'm slightly worried they'll snap into pieces any moment now. Her face is glazed over with a blank mask, but the wariness in her eyes betray her. Earlier, she had been in such a rush to send this person away, but now she seems to be stalled by her own thoughts. So that's why the ghost was split open, because she had to get split open for her ribs to be taken out. When she finally breaks out of her head, she stomps over to a drawer and rummages through it. She produces a needle, a roll of thread, and one more thing off a shelf, a bottle that glows a faint orange. She makes her way over to the body. She makes quick work of placing the ribs back where they belong before plucking out the old broken stitches that held Hypatia's torso together. Oh my goodness. Her hands had been so rough in tearing the stitching open, but now her trembling fingers work delicately. After disposing of them, she begins to mend the flesh together. Her stitching is clumsy, a trait she shares with her mother, I suppose. When she finishes, she takes a step back. This ghost is so different from the others. It feels like whatever happens next will be the point of no return. The final stop of this train is approaching, and the only way off this ride is to jump before it crashes. Dove holds up the glowing bottle she had grabbed earlier. Liquid fire. It can melt through anything. We don't have to risk burning the house down again. My chest tightens. This is it. Dove places a hand on the corpse's arm, then tears her from the alcove. The corpse crumbles to a heap on the floor. I won't be making the mistake of thinking this body could simply wake up and continue living anymore. It decays rapidly before my very eyes, like it's overly eager to correct itself to the rightful stage of necrosis. Hypatia's pale skin darkens and patches to a death green. Veiny lines start to marble across her cheeks, and an oily sheen begins to develop, along with a foul smell that has me breathing shallowly. I flinch from the sound of Dove popping the cork from the bottle. Panic surges through me. I don't feel ready at all. But I keep finding out that there are not many changes that wait for you to be before they become your new reality. The corpse's flesh begins to dissolve from the pouring liquid. It sizzles and hisses as it easily eats through flesh all the way to the bone. She covers the body thoroughly with the honey-like substance until the last drop falls from the bottle's mouth. I lift my gaze from the corpse. It lands on the hallway ghost standing in the room with us. I've never seen it enter a room before. But now it turns its neck, looking around the room as if in search for something. Dove drops the bottle in her hand when she sees her, and it cracks on the floor. She rips her gaze away and looks down at the disintegrating corpse. You'll finally be gone now. I can see Dove's eyes turn glossy. You'll be gone. Her head snaps back to the ghost. The ghost looks down at its fading hands. Its lifeless gaze finds Dove and turns to her with its arms spread, ready to pull her into a loving embrace. Whatever emotions Dove had been bottling up instantly shatters like glass. My mind feels foggy as I watch Dove break into a sob. I move before she does. Dove chokes on a gasp when I stop her from running to the ghost. What are you doing? Let go! I tighten the grip of my jaws around her skirt even more. I whimper my own cry towards her. I understand. I've done something like this before. When the world was so big and I was so small, everything terrified me. When I was overwhelmed with emotions and didn't understand a thing, I would always run into the arms of my mother too. Let go! Oh! I didn't see the timer! I didn't see the timer! Oh my god, no. I didn't know the timer was there. I thought it was a safe... I thought this was like a moment that I could like save and decide. Oh my god. Well, my grip on Dove's dress weakens. She slips and falls onto her knees and quickly bolts back up onto her feet. I bark out in worry. I can hear Dove's flesh shearing when she throws herself into the ghost's embrace. Dove cries out, but she does not release her grip on the ghost's dress. I guess she's used to it, receiving warmth that also comes with a sting. Dove tries to speak, but she can only make sounds of agony. I whimper and stay stuck to my spot. My claws dig into the floor. I despise how helpless I feel as I do nothing but watch Dove burn. Dove's knees give out under her and I race for her. I let her fall back onto me and wince sharply at the redness of her hands as she holds them up. Her delicate skin now blisters and bleeds. Dove squeezes her eyes shut, thick tears drip down her chin. Then it comes. The disembodied sound of wind chimes guts me. Time is up. Dove's cries make my body feel so cold. The door to Dove's bedroom flies open and slams against the wall. I feel Dove go still as a statue under my head. I lift my head up from her lap. The hand that had been petting the fur along my spine now holds it in a numbing grip. I feel his magic before I see him. The grotesque dolls above us rattle and the drapes around Dove's bed tremble. Soon after, his footsteps enter into the room. My breathing pauses. Dove's father must have finally seen what we did. First, the magic knocks me over. I hear Dove gasp and feel her arms cage around me. Air slams into us like a train and sends the canopy curtains into a wild billow. The cold air makes my eyes sting and I squeeze them shut. Static makes my first stand. It feels like the wind is blended with shocking strings of electricity. When the gale finally dies down, I can feel Dove's heart slamming against her ribs as she shields my body with her own. Her breath comes out in distressed gasps. I dare to open my eyes again and darkness surrounds us. My own heart hammers away as I gaze out into the space beyond the posts of the bed frame. The curtains have been magically dissolved, leaving us completely exposed to the void. Every shallow breath I make sounds enhanced by the nothingness. Everywhere I look is swallowed by darkness, save for a single light that drapes over Dove's bed. I look up trying to find its source. It seems to come from nowhere. I take a peek over the edge of the bed. I can see my own appearance reflected in the obsidian surface that covers the ground. Ripples break the calmness of the glassy liquid caused by something that walks towards us. Arms yank me back from the edge of the bed. Dove scarcely breathes. She holds me close and twists her body in an attempt to hide me from the one who approaches. It's the witch. I brace myself to face his wrath. His footsteps create a wet slap as he draws closer. The sound of the footsteps is much lighter than I expected them to be. My whole body seizes with terror. What have you done? Dove flinches from the wave of energy that radiates off of him. A feeling of nausea paints my innards as the boy steps out of the shadows instead of the witch. Dove's breath catches and her arms shake around me. They hold on to me like a lifeline. The light from above creates harsh shadows over the boy's enraged features. You insolent child. Do you understand what you've done? The boy bares his teeth in a sneer. He snarkles. This is what I keep wanting to say, snarkles. He circles around the bed with his hands behind his back like a viper taking its time to stalk its prey before it strikes. Wait, is this the dad? Is the dad just like everywhere? I'm so confused. I thought it's just his son that looks like the dad. Were they ever in the same room together? He circles around the bed with his hands behind his back like a viper taking its time to stalk its prey before it strikes. My ears flatten from the threat in his venomous stare. I turn my head trying to keep him in my line of sight, but his body flickers through the shadows like a specter. One moment he appears normal, the next moment the pristine white skull of a wolf decorates the upper part of his face. He really is a witch as well. Or they're just the same. I'm confused. The boy raises his hands to his head and it curls into himself. I was so close. We could have had everything again. Dove leans forward and tightens her arms around me. We don't need her. The boy snaps in her direction. Wrong! I need her. The boy begins to pace back and forth, water sloshing at his feet. My brows furrow. I crane my neck to look onto the ground again. The black liquid now gurgles and splashes against the frame of the bed as it slowly climbs higher and higher. This is no good at all. So what? We'll be fine. I can hear Dove start to sniffle above me. The child whips around and grabs the two posts at the front of the bed. I hear them crack under his grip. I will not be fine. Dove's breathing turns ragged. To think you would betray her so. Dove hiccups and hides her face in my neck. You know of the expectations she had of you. I suppose she would be so proud of what you've done. I hear Dove gasp. She would really love what you've become. So wicked all on your own. The boy's face twists into a wry smile. I can hear the wooden post under the boy's hand start to splinter. Soon after, something begins to slither up from the dark waters. Tendrils of oily black vines coil up the frame of the bed and slowly crawl towards us. Thorns resembling long and sharp needles spike out from them. The boy's face suddenly falls into despair and his gaze drops. If she hadn't become so greedy, I wouldn't have had to do what I did. I watch his expression turn sour before his head snaps back up to glare at Dove with glassy eyes. She is all I have! The post breaks in half. Dove throws herself over me as the broken wood is swallowed by the rising ebony lake around us, creating a deafening splash. Dove's cold body trembles and I feel anger swell in me like dark waves. Does Dove truly mean nothing to him? I start to growl. The boy glares viciously at Dove. Now you've made things considerably more difficult. Do you know how much more we will have to pay to bring Hypatia back? This is not fine at all, Dove. I hear Dove break into a sob, then I snap. I tear out of her arms and lash out at the boy with a snarl. The boy stumbles back slightly in surprise but manages to respond with a dark scowl. You. Dove's breath hitches behind me when the boy starts to lift his arms. I think I've tolerated you disrupting my home for long enough. I stand my ground and my throat rumbles. I bend my knees to prepare my attack as bloody patterns begin to manifest on the back of his hands. Then, in a single blink, we are back in Dove's room with the curtains of her canopy back in place. The boy spins around. I hear glass crunch under his feet. His enraged expression melts into confusion as he faces the window, and then a sound thunders throughout the entire mansion. I freeze as the chime of the grandfather clock pierces the air. The heavy metal clang makes the air around us tremble and painfully reverberates inside my skull. My body submits to the overwhelming sound and my tail goes between my legs. The boy's hands fly up to cover his ears. The hell? The boy groans out in agony. Black veins begin to spread from the dark markings around the boy's eyes. I can see blood dripping I can see blood start to drip from his nose. He staggers back and brings a hand up to swipe at the blood. His eyes widen in shock when he sees it coating his fingers. I can't see the window beyond the curtains of the canopy, but for just a fraction of a second I swear I see the red light that spills into the room flicker with a mysterious shadow. Shit! The boy cups the bottom of his nose and makes long strides towards the door in a hasty exit. He pauses at the threshold of the broken door, then places his hand on the frame. Red blooms in the back of his hand as a magic circle forms and overrides the incomplete spell etched onto his skin. You will stay in here and out of my way. Dove lets out a panicked gasp. No! Dove bounds off the bed and throws herself at the door just as it vanishes with the boy on the other side. Dove slams against the blank wall that now stands where her door used to be. I hop off the bed and try to avoid the paint-covered glass all over the floor. A breeze brushes against my fur. It's coming from the window. I take a peek outside. There's no longer anything separating us from the outside elements. The glass panes of the window have been completely shattered, and now Dove's paintings lie in scattered pieces across the floor. Somewhere else in the house, the grandfather clock continues its booming toll. Time flows so much faster when you can hear its presence. When it was quiet, I felt like I had permission to think it had been frozen, put on hold, so that when it once again resumes, everything that had happened in its absence wouldn't count as real. The disturbing clanging finally stops, but the sound of ticking continues mercilessly. I look over and Dove runs her hands over the smooth wall where her door used to be. Her hands drop. Without making a sound, she stands and turns to face the mess of the glass of the floor. Streaks of dried, black tears and red blotches paint her cheeks. Her eyes scan the glass in the window warily. It's like she's just become completely numb to everything. I whimper. Dove leans down, picks up a shard of glass, and clenches her fist around it. The glass slices into her palm, sending Dove into a state of shock. I tilt my head in concern. Did she think it wouldn't cut her? Her head twists on her neck as she searches around the room for something, but all she finds is silence. My brows press together as I observe her strange actions, then something clicks in my mind. I remember seeing her do something like this before. After Basil had left, Dove looked for her just like she does now. Dove's eyes drop to the ground as she releases the shard, her arms falling at her sides. Oh, I'm alone now. My eyes slowly blow wide open. She drops onto the floor in a heap, and her eyes turn into a dull blue as she retreats into the darkest corners of her mind. It's the last safe place she has, all because of me. Each ghost was a decoration that hid the bars of this birdcage Dove calls home. Despite the fact that they had been rotting away long before I had arrived, one by one, I ripped them down, forcing her to see this space for the cold, empty prison cell it truly is. It's because of the ghosts themselves that she was able to find comfort, despite being in a place so deprived of that. Without them, what does she have? I look around the room and analyze every little detail. The books, the plants and drawings, the monsters. Everything Dove has done since we first met reveals everything I need to know about her. Dove has never tried to get out. She'd already settled into the discomfort. I feel my fur bristle. Dove had lived with the monsters like she was one of them. She must think she truly is one after being treated like one for so long. She's been convinced that she is something that belongs to the night, hidden away, locked away. Something undeserving of love and care. No. Something that can only be loved by things that are as terrible as she is. Dove's father had locked her cage from the outside, and she had locked it from the inside. The ghosts were her distractions. That's all Dove has ever done. Distract herself so nothing needs to change. If she's distracted, she won't focus on the things she truly yearns for. She won't think of how she wishes things were better. For Dove, the path of improvement starts with a steep decline. She now stands at the top of the hill, looking down, completely scared out of her wits. There are two options at this point for her. She can either stay at the top, where the air is cold and thin, or she can walk forward into the unknown. It's an extreme choice to make, but maybe if I stay by her side, she'll have the courage to make the right one. There's no love for her here, and Dove must think there's none for her outside of these walls either. But there's me! But there's me! I will love Dove, so much that I will overflow with it. I'll have enough love to last us lifetimes. I will be the first to love Dove when she is free, and I won't be the last. But how do I convince her of that? Love is just a word. It can be empty, heavy, easy to say, or impossible to say. It means nothing when there is no foundation under it to bear its weight. Love. Sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes it's too simple. Sometimes it's too complicated. To say you love or loved can mean so many different things to whoever hears it. So how can I define what my love means for Dove? How can I prove to her that this feeling I have is hers to have, to take, to use, to consume, to devour? If I were to cut out my heart and serve it to her on a platter to feast on, I still don't think that would be enough. I take a deep breath to calm the frantic beating in my chest. Maybe nothing will be different on the outside. After all, there's no such thing as a normal childhood for children like us. When other kids were playing in the creek to catch crayfish, I could only watch from the distance. The last time I tried to play with them, they ran away. They knew who I was. What I was. Their parents would have told them, warned them to stay away. Not plainly, no, that wouldn't be effective. What is more powerful than the curiosity of a child? Not many things, I think. Wouldn't I know that best? They needed to be creative, to keep their children away from beasts like us. To them, we are folklore, songs, scary stories to be told at bedtime. Our nails are iron, our teeth are sharp, our eyes can curse, our voices can steal, our blood can burn. And I suppose, after everything I've been through, they're right to be afraid. We truly are nightmares brought to life. We are nightmares that pierce the veil of safety so we can walk outside in the daytime amongst them. We don't even look that different though, at least not at first. Maybe if no one looks too closely, Dove could pass off as one of them, so she could be accepted into their care. My heart clenches at the thought. No, that would be impossible. Witches themselves try so hard to smother the magic in their own children, and the result only makes them yearn for it more. The witchling is born starved, not for food or affection, but for the ether. That's why we can never be mistaken for human. We wear our hunger for magic on our sleeves. Anyone would be able to instantly tell that we are not the same. After everything that's happened, to try and contain Dove even outside the wall of this mansion would be too cruel. If Dove cannot be loved for who she is, what would all of this effort be for? I look to my side. Near me, Dove wraps her arms around her knees and hides her face. You have to leave this place. Not without you. My eyes sweep over the scattered shards of glass, and the paintings that have been separated into parts like puzzle pieces. I start to push large pieces together until the paintings align, not really considering the reason of my actions. Dove's eyes widen and she tries to push me away from the glass. Stop! You'll get hurt. Don't bother yourself, they're just stupid drawings. I wince when a shard cuts into the fleshy pad of my paw, but I do not stop. You made them, how can they be stupid? My bleeding paw leaves little red marks on the floor as I continue rearranging the broken glass. As the paintings are slowly reformed, I take a note of what they are. The long limbs of Ziri, the flowing train of mycelium from Basil, the many hands of Odette, the sharp elbows of Grell. Dove had even painted the trailing gore of her mother's ghost. Their images become laid out before me, cradled by swirling brushstrokes. Dove uncurls her arms and leans forward on her palms. Her fingers reach out to tentatively brush against the glass. My paws sting with cuts and leave smudges of red on the floor. As Dove admires the fractured paintings, an idea forms in my head. As I burst into action, I wonder how I had never thought to do this before. I press my bloody paw on the floor and work hastily. I get even more chunks of glass embedded into my paws, but I'm numb to the pain at this point. I bark to get Dove's attention. She turns her head slowly, then I watch shock begin to take over her features. Dove's lips move, not speaking, simply mouthing the word I've written on the floor. Her eyes grow watery. You. I hop and press little red paw prints against her dress. I then hop back down and tuck my chin into my chest to point at myself. And me. I move to stand behind the word I've written and my tail wags side to side. Friends. Written in blood and all, which has to mean something, right? It doesn't matter if the word disappears, the blood will cling to every tiny grain in the wood, into the very essence of this house, even after it's long gone. This word is my gift to Dove. For the fireworks, for the safety, for letting me meet her. It can't be taken back. You are my friend, Dove, and I am yours. Until the world is nothing but memory dust floating through time. Dove's lip begins to wobble. We're friends? My tail wags. I nod my head slowly and hold her eyes in mine fiercely. Dove sniffles and wipes at her eyes. Then, she asks me a question that catches me completely off guard. What's your name? My eyes grow wide. A wave of emotion goes through me. My whole body suddenly feels like it's been strung tight. My name? My head bows, and I stare at the floor. I swallow a gulp, then drag my bloody paw against the boards. When I'm done, Dove's eyes consider what I've written. She stares at my name with wonder before flickering her gaze to me. Basil? I feel my breath get knocked out of my lungs. I blink rapidly to fight off the wave of sadness. I didn't know I would miss hearing my own name so much. It feels like a piece of my true self has been returned to me. I miss it so much. The sound of my grandmother calling my name. Whether with affection or discipline, I miss it all. Dove lets out a small hiccup and the well inside of her begins to overflow. Tears fall down her cheeks. The sun shines in the obsidian streaks like starlight. She surges forward and throws her arms around my neck. I desperately wish I could also shed my own tears, but my feelings are trapped inside of this body. I can do no more than softly whimper out my sorrows. Dove sobs into my fur and wipes at the snot that leaks from her nose onto my fur as well. Basil. My heart jumps at the way she says my name. My eyes close and I nuzzle my head against her, breathing in the way she smells like old books and withered lilacs to hide the smell of decay that clings to everything in this house. Dove cries her heart out. I begin to wonder if she'll cry herself to death. I think she has enough tears hoarded away to cry endlessly. Eventually, though, her wails start to wane into quiet sniffles. I jump when my ears pick up the sound of something clicking. Dove's fingers clutch the leaf charm on my necklace. It suits you even more than I thought. I imagined. I look up at Dove and she smiles softly before turning her head towards the broken glass. Dove pulls away from me and looks to her side. It's not done yet. My gaze swings to the empty section above the paintings of the monsters. The other parts were easy to fit together because I could recognize the creatures, but some sections were difficult to piece together. Dove moves to kneel before the unfinished section with her back to the window. She leans over the pieces and starts to place the missing parts together. Her hands move confidently to stitch the fragments together. I suppose it makes sense that she's far more familiar with her paintings. When she's done, she leans back. The completed painting finally sits before me. I tilt my head in bewilderment as I take it in. I've never seen this creature before. The longer I gaze upon it, the more unsettled I start to feel. The painting is a shadowed humanoid. It's devoid of details or anything that can help me identify it. The most unique thing about it is the spread of bat-like wings and the long clawed fingers that stretch out as if beckoning you to come closer. Are they real, or just a figment of Dove's imagination? A strong breeze chills me. Dove twists her neck to look behind her. Her hair flies around her like leaves in the wind. I notice her gaze catch onto something and delicately pad over to the window. A single rose stands on the seat in front of the window. There's nothing to hold it up. Something enchants it to stand perfectly straight as if it's a piece of glass. The petals are white as snow like the ones in the rooftop garden. My instincts are screaming at me to stay away from it, but Dove moves like clockwork before I can stop her. When it comes to roses, people typically avoid its thorns. There usually isn't a need to stay clear of the soft petals, but I would caution that these ones stay admired from a distance. Dove brings the tip of her finger to the cluster of tiny teeth that line each petal. I didn't even notice those. The petal wastes no time snapping shut around the offered flesh. Dove wrenches her hand back with a gasp, and a small ring of teeth marks wrap around her finger. We both watch as her blood starts to soak through each petal until the rose bleeds into a vibrant red. Where did it come from? My muscles are tense. A noise makes me jump. My eyes snap to the outside of the window. It almost sounded like the flap of wings. My gaze darts from the trees to the sky in search, but nothing stands out. Was it just my imagination? I look to Dove and her eyes are completely fixed on the rose with an expression I cannot read. We remained trapped in Dove's room for days. At first we were desperate to find a way out, to be trapped in this box with nothing but books and our wits. I was afraid we would go mad, but eventually we decided to just start waiting. Well, Dove decided waiting would be the best course of action, and I howled about it until I was too tired to continue howling. She had a plan and I didn't like it one bit. As we wasted away, warm meals and fresh water would appear in the room, but Dove would only touch the water. Worry takes a bite out of me every time I see how much more tired and frail she becomes. We could still hear the ticking from the grandfather clock, and I counted every second painstakingly to track how much time had passed. On the 259,200th second, the door reappears. I don't know how to read anything beyond a certain point. It's like, why do I need to know how to read this? I don't see number that big ever. The witch walks through it. Dove looks up from her place amongst her book towers. The witch steps into the room and places a hand on his hip. He looks down at Dove and gives her a smile.
Up you get, darling. It's time to get ready for dinner.
Dove looks like she's dressed for a funeral. After finally being freed from the confines of Dove's room, I watched as she was dragged into the kitchen and placed into a steaming copper tub to be scrubbed clean. The witch makes no comment when he clutches a glimpse of the thin cuts up and down her arms before she shoves what The witch makes no comment when he catches a glimpse of the thin cuts up and down her arms before she shoves them into the water. Jesus Christ. I could not read the sentence. Then, like she's nothing more than a doll, she is buttoned up in an all-black dress. It's far more fancy than anything I've ever seen her wear before. To be wrapped up so formally, I fear for what the occasion must be. All the candles that had covered the dining room table have been cleared away. The linen has been replaced with a fresh one, and all 3 chairs have been uncovered. On top of the table now sits platters and plates of exquisite food. Fruits polished to a mirror-like shine, free of any blemishes, steaming meats with thick sauces, mixed vegetables. The food is so enticing it's suspicious, but part of me still hopes that Dove will hide away a plate for me after this no dogs allowed event is over. I can feel saliva start to pool in my mouth from the temptation of the smell alone. And after not eating for days, I can't imagine how Dove is faring as she sits opposite to her father. Candles flicker and crackle around the room while a storm rages against the window outside. I sit in the hallway peering into the room through a gap in the doorway. Music plays faintly on the side, filling the awkward silence. Dove hasn't said a word. She sits neatly with her hands on top of one another on her lap, while her eyes try to set the empty chair next to her father ablaze. The witch takes a long sip of the rich, dark red liquid in his wine glass and sets it down with a tap. His skin has dulled to a lifeless gray, and the marks around his eyes have sunk in even deeper and darker. His eyes flick around the room, almost anxiously. A candle pops loudly behind him, and I see his shoulders jump. He twists his neck to quickly look behind him, and my head tilts slightly. Surely that didn't actually frighten him. I can feel my nerves start to fray from his strange behavior. He blinks and composes himself once more before turning his gaze to Dove and clearing his throat.
I'm sorry you've been locked away for so long.
I feel my lip curl over my teeth. Is he sorry about her bedroom door or the mansion doors? I see Dove's eyes blink at me from the corner of my eye before she acknowledges the witch's apology, to which she doesn't. Dove's eyes fall to the covered plate in front of her. She reaches for her fork and holds it up ready to finally eat. The witch holds up a hand.
Not yet.
Dove's bottom lip juts out in disappointment. She drops the fork with a clang and slumps into her seat. The witch swirls his wine.
Don't forget grace, my dear. We can't eat until the devils have blessed our meal.
Dove crosses her arms over her rumbling stomach.
Tell me, what have you been reading lately?
I lay my head on my paws and huff quietly. What hasn't she been reading? Dove turns her head to stare out at the rain that taps against the window. Nothing you would find interesting.
Indulge me, I'm curious.
Dove takes a deep breath. I was going through a collection of work by one writer. His name was Lowe, or something along those lines. The witch leans his head on his palm and takes a sip of his wine.
Ah, yes, I'm familiar with him.
He sets a wine glass down.
Not quite my cup of tea, I'll admit, but I do find some of his words quite captivating. One of them being, I was never really insane.
The witch looks at Dove expectantly. She blinks and looks down at her lap with the slightest hint of redness at her cheeks. Except upon occasions when my heart was touched. Dove's fingers tangle together on her lap and I see the witch give her a small smile.
You are definitely a fan of his works already, I see.
More red stains Dove's cheeks and she sinks lower in her chair. The witch opens his mouth to continue the conversation, then he suddenly shoots up from his chair. Dove startles just as I do when his chair falls to the floor with a loud clatter. My heart pounds and my ears stand on high alert. What on earth? I rise up from the floor and I bend my elbows, ready to burst into the room if need be. I peek out from the edge of the tablecloth and see the witch stagger back a step with his skull mask now over his eyes. His eyes are glued to the windows. I switch my gaze over to them and see nothing. This family seems to be very good at seeing things that are not in plain view. I'm convinced this house is haunted by far more than just ghosts, especially considering the fact that we personally sent most of them departing. In less than a blink, the witch's mask is dissolved and he resets his chair back to the way it was. Is the devil here? Is that what it is? The winged beast outside? I catch a glimpse of his forearm and see a smudge of red. He used magic. But for what? The answer comes in the sound of light knocking. Hidden in the shadows of the dining room are hints of movement and flashes of strings. I swallow. Dove sits stiffly in her chair and doesn't acknowledge the new unwelcome audience. The witch returns to his seat, picks up his glass, and finishes his wine to the dredge. He sets the empty glass on the table and starts to rub his temples.
I apologize, I seem to be seeing things lately.
Dove says nothing and avoids looking at him. Her father sighs wearily, then grabs a bottle of wine to refill his glass.
Let's go on a trip. Just you, me, and Hypatia.
Dove's head snaps up to look at her father. He finishes pouring the wine and sets it down with a tap that makes Dove flinch hard.
It's been a long time since you left this place, hasn't it?
The witch's mouth forms a thin line.
We'll go somewhere nice, then, the three of us. Everything has been prepared to bring her back.
He holds a bowl of his wine glass and considers the deeply colored contents.
I just need.
The witch's brows furrow together. He seems to be hesitating on what to say.
One last thing.
Dove looks at her father like he's grown 6 heads. Shock then fury crosses her features and her eyes burn bright with betrayal. Her eyes prick with tears, but she does not let them fall. Dove's eyes drop down to the covered plate in front of her. The witch rises from his seat swiftly and begins to make his way over to Dove's end of the table. In the air, I start to smell the notes of something. Sour. I watch Dove nervously.
I wanted to celebrate.
Dove is as white as the linen on the dining table by the time he stands beside her. Is it gonna be a head? He places his hand on top of Dove's plate cover.
Tonight.
Dove's mouth falls open like a marionette.
We will finally be whole again.
A single black tear slides down her cheek.
I made your favorite.
He starts to lift the cover.
Violet.
I jump when the witch suddenly flies back and drops a lid with a mine-rattling clang. My ears fall and a veil is torn away. A curdled smell invades my senses and makes me reel back from my place at the dining room entrance. When I look, I see that all the food on the table has decayed, with patches of mold dusting near every surface. Ugh. Flies zip around the food and maggots wriggle and fall onto the table in clumps. I force down the need to retch, especially when I lay eyes on Dove's favorite food. I think it might be a little undercooked considering it's still wriggling and writhing on her plate. Leeches! I've made your favorite, baby! Leeches! Dove wears a blank expression as she stares down at the leeches. I can't even begin to fathom what passes through her head as she picks up her fork and knife and starts cutting up her meal. Ah! The witch stumbles away in disgust and backs up against the window. Dove takes her time slicing a leech into pieces. Blood leaks out from its lifeless body and pools on her plate. Her face is frighteningly calm as she picks up a gory chunk gracefully with her fork. No, don't do it! You can see the witch watch in horror as she begins to raise it to her mouth. I can't tell what he's anticipating more as he makes no move to stop her, because he observes her like a live experiment. Knowing what I know of Dove, there are two possibilities for what she might do. 1. She sets her fork back down after nothing more than a disturbing bluff, and 2. She eats the raw leech. If he was hoping the former might come true, well then he doesn't know what kind of daughter he raised. Dove chews slowly, carefully. Eating leeches can be risky. If they're still whole and alive when you eat them, there's a highly likely chance that they will latch their teeth onto your internal organs. And if you are unable to remove them, they will drink your blood until they're swollen and blocking your airways. After Dove swallows, the witch makes the sign of the cross, the devil's version, which is just the inverse of the holier version. His hands tremble as he does it. Now his expression mirrors Dove's state of shock from earlier. He's like, oh my god. Oh my devils, that is... what in the world?
It's true. You are one of theirs.
Lightning illuminates the sky behind the witch. For the fraction of a second, I swear I see the silhouette of something amongst the clouds, but there's no time to dwell on it. Is she the daughter of a devil and not his daughter? Did her mom make love to a devil? I am so confused. The witch wears a solemn expression as he stares down at Dove.
It has to be you.
Dove's head turns until her eyes land on me. My heart beats erratically. Her mouth forms the word go. It's now. I gulp. Or never. I turn down the hallway and hear a whooshing sound as every candle and light in the house is extinguished. I hear Dove gasp and the entire mansion groan. Then one by one in the dark, red eyes blink into existence until the hallway is speckled with them.
First.
I freeze when I hear the voice of the boy come from right behind me. I will deal with you. I immediately break into a run. Please don't get hurt, Dove. I break into the study and heave as I catch my breath. My feet sprint over to the shelves and knock over books and bottles. I dig through jars of ambiguous preserved objects, searching high and low for secrets. Dove said that if there is a key to how the witch comes and goes out of the mansion, it would be here and nowhere else. She never tried to look for it all these years because she did not have a reason to leave until now. The mansion consumes so much magic to do everything it does, which limits how much is available for him to use. He wouldn't waste energy when he's been using so much of it to research how to revive my mother first and keep me in prison second. Dove looks away for a moment. Even then, with all the magic he devours, there is scarcely any left. Dove's eyes glaze over and she stares blankly at the air that surrounds us. When there is barely anything else, he uses the blood caps. I don't know a thing about my father, but I know my father. My heart tugs as I remember the plan Dove had devised. I'll finally have the privilege of having his attention all to myself, while you find the thing that will open this manor's doors. I leap onto a stool and claw my way onto the table that stands in the middle of the room. My eyes rake through small bowls of crushed herbs, stacks of journals, and hastily written notes, but nothing resembles what could be a key that unlocks these walls. It has to be here somewhere. I use the height of the table to my advantage and drag my gaze through every corner of the room. Maybe there's a button or something, a map? I shift through my own memories. It feels like the clue is already within me, but it refuses to surface. The rattle of chains disrupts my line of thinking, then something in my mind clicks. My ears twist on my head following the sound, then my eyes land on it. Sitting on the witch shrine shines a silver thrumbel. Strings of delicate chains drape off the edge, and purple smoke curls out of the incense holder. My nose soaks up a woody, spicy scent, and suddenly I'm pulled back to the very first day. I remember the smell and the sound of chains moving in a controlled motion. The key. I have no doubt about it. This has to be it. I jump off the study table and bolt for the witch shrine. I'm just inches away from snapping my teeth around the hanging chains when the eyes of every skull in the shrine come to life. I skid to a halt as a red glow materializes in the once lifeless shadows of the skull's eye sockets. Suddenly it feels like I have the weight of 1,000 eyes upon me. Their voices strike me like lightning, all screaming out for the same thing. Lexus! The floorboards underneath me tremble from the fury that comes through the shrine. My heart completely drops into the acid of my stomach. Then another scream has me spinning. Basil! My ears perk up to the sound of footsteps coming closer to the study. A set of light ones and heavy ones. I panic. My eyes jump between the thrumbel and the door. Grab the thrumbel! I yank the thrumbel down onto the floor and start to pick it up with my mouth, and then the door to the study creaks open. Ice spreads through my veins.
Why, Reverend Mother, I'm so honored to have you lighting up my shrine again so soon.
The witch slowly approaches the shrine as I slip under the shadows of the table and softly pad towards the exit. The mirror that had once been dull now reflects his portrait as he steps up to the shrine.
You fiend, save me your honeyed words and answer me. Is it true? They have visited you. For her.
The witch frowns and crosses his arms behind his back.
Yes, I did not believe it at first. The words it had been whispering to me at night were nonsense to me.
The witch pulls his arms forward and massages the tattooed magic circle on the back of his hand.
But now I must do as it asks. Ask, what do they bid you to do, brother?
The witch's eyes pierce into the glowing orbs of the Reverend Mother's skull.
I must return their children to them. Return!
The shrine bursts into flames and the skulls all release shrill screams that rattle every window and surface.
No!
The Reverend Mother emits one last shriek before her connection to the shrine is severed. The witch watches the flames with no remorse, and I can see the blood that trails down the magic circle on his hand. He stumbles slightly on unsteady legs and breaks into a violent cough. His magic is unstable. I dare to observe him just a little longer, then a shrill cry rings down the hallway. Basil! My head snaps around, making the chains in my mouth jingle and drawing the witch's attention to me. His gaze slams down on me standing in the doorway, seconds away from slipping out, but he does not move to give me chase. He wipes away a streak of blood that trails down his chin, then straightens. There you are, little puppy. Time to go on a walk. I'll take you on a personal tour through hell. The fur along my spine puffs up when the boy appears right behind me. Who are you? I don't understand. Are you actually her brother? I'm so confused. They're now in the same room, but I still don't believe his existence. He grins wickedly and his carmine eyes crinkle behind the bone-white wolf skull. Blood runs down his face from under the mask. I breathe out in quick puffs as the boy blocks my way out of the room, but I see a single, perhaps slightly insane opportunity. Just as he reaches down for me, pale hands starting to blaze with bleeding circles, I slip out between his legs. What? I stick out my tongue as I bound away. Stupid witch. I find Dove standing in the hallway crying into the balls of her hands. When you change? When she sees me, she sucks in a sharp breath and starts to rush over to me. I run my eyes up and down her length, then breathe out a sigh of relief when I conclude no harm has come to her. I thought he got you. Dove throws her arms around me, and I can feel her shake. The thrumbel slips from my mouth and clatters onto the floor. My tail wags in her embrace, and so quickly she turns still as a stone. I back away in confusion. Dove looks down at the ropes of black string that wrap around her, then gives me one last look of terror, before the strings rip away from me and down the darkness of the hallway. rip her away from me. No! Her screams pound in my ears as the house swallows her. In the chilling silence that follows, I hear chains. Looking for this, doggy. I turn my head and capture just a glimpse of the boy before he melts into the darkness. I twist my neck trying to follow the phantasmal movements that stalk me in the gloom. I can hear the chains of the thrumbel swinging and smell the smoke that escapes it, but all around me is nothingness. The sound of the chains move back and forth like a pendulum. Time to play a little game. I twirl around and come face to face with the boy crouching down to my level. He gives me an ear-to-ear grin. Basil. My heart almost explodes in my chest. He reaches towards me and I hold my breath. His hand wraps around my snout and gives it a rough pull. His vermilion eyes deepen until they're almost black and he glares down at me. Tag, you're it. I glance down at the thrumbel in his hand and break for it. My attempt to reclaim the incense holder meets nothing but air. The boy melts into the shadows once again. Then his voice bounces off the walls from every direction, rendering it impossible to pinpoint its source. Catch me and maybe you can have your prize. The sound of clinking chains starts to vanish down the hall. I inhale deeply, then exhale. Then I start to chase it. I swear, past, present, and future, there will never be a single version of these halls that does not covet my hatred. I pant as I reach a dead end in the hallway. This labyrinth had almost started to become familiar to me, but now it's as if everything has been reset back to nonsense. I retrace my steps back to a set of diverging halls. I pick up the sound of chains coming from the left, but from the right there's another sound. My chest tightens. I don't have time for this. Wait, what? History? What'd you say? The right. Oh, I'm going to the right. Bye. I tiptoe down the right hallway and the sound I've come to investigate grows clearer. I recognize what awaits me from the sound alone. The dull clink of fluttering velvet wings against glass makes my ears stand up straight. In the dark, the bioluminescent red wings of doves' moths clash within the jar that traps them. It sits mysteriously right in the middle of the floor like a lantern floating in the middle of the sea. I dare to think it had been placed here just for me to find, because I'm finding that there is little coincidence to the strangeness that occurs here. My head spins as I search for whoever or whatever could have left the moths here, and all I find is eerie emptiness. I stare down the jar in contemplation, then I wrap my jaws around the glass and carefully pick it up. Perhaps this is a sign of divine intervention, but a terrible feeling tells me something more wicked is brewing here. My pace quickens as I continue to search for the boy. I'm panting heavily when I finally come to a stop again. After a series of running through doors, finding dead ends, and leaping through perilous gaps in the floor, I find myself face to face with the hidden door, the one I've slipped through a handful of times by now. It's held wide open for me, beckoning me to enter. I sneak into the greenhouse on drenched paws from the rain and keep my body low to the ground. When I had first walked into the greenhouse, it was bursting with color and life. The rosebush was a shard of the night sky that had fallen down to earth. Now there is not a star that remains amongst the withered veins and vines and leaves. My heart mourns its loss. It was as grand as it was monstrous in its desire for blood, but I still found it no less lovely. When it still stood in all of its grandness, I had found Dove at the base of the rosebush, but now, at its most lifeless, I find the witch. He holds something in his hand and he brings it to his mouth. Blood caps. It almost looks like crystallized gore. Its glow does not dull even in a dehydrated state. Streaks of light pierce through the witch's fingers as if he were holding a piece of the sun. The dried mushroom crunches loudly between his teeth, and when he swallows, the boon of the blood caps brings him to his knees. His body seizes and his legs lock up, dropping him to the tiled floor. A wet cough claws up his throat, and his body shakes in a way that looks painful. He gasps for air. A glowing cloak of red light pulses over his body briefly. When the violent effects of the blood cap finally start to settle, the witch wipes his mouth and moves until he is kneeling in front of a small bundle of withered flowers. I watch as he digs into the pocket of his trousers and produces a small notebook. He snaps it open with the flick of his wrist. A chunk of chalk is wedged between the pages. Immediately he draws out a magic circle on the floor before the dead flora. A gust of wind blows into the greenhouse and swirls through the space, sweeping the scent of wood and spice into my nose. I slowly move around, watching the witch's back intensely until the thrumbel comes into view. The moth jar cradled between my teeth seems to burst with vigor the closer I get to the witch. The silver censer sits at the witch's side. I can feel my blood rushing through my veins and I move in. The air shimmers with magic when the witch activates the magic circle he's drawn. I'm just like, am I gonna die? Was the dead wolf in the beginning a foreshadow? I catch a glimpse of hooded purple flowers blooming back to life. Then a twig snaps under my paw. The witch's head snaps in my direction. Up close I can see his bloodshot scarlet eyes behind his skull mask, and the sheen of sweat over his pale skin. He glances down to the thrumble at my feet. Then I throw down the jar of carnivorous moths onto the floor with every scrap of my might. The witch yells out as a cloud of red wings explodes right in his face. The sound of high-pitched chirping vibrates through the air and makes my ears go flat on my head. There are far more moths than what was contained, but I take it as a magical blessing. I dive for the thrumble between the chaos. As soon as I have the chains of the thrumble between my teeth, the squeaking of the moths vanish. I throw my head up, then shrink back in terror. The boy stands before me, jaw clenched in a sneer. Every moth that had attacked the witch had been incinerated and now falls to the floor in ashes. The boy holds his fist up. The magic circle in the back of his hand oozes blood, dripping down past his wrist. His image wavers as the witch rises to his full height behind him. He raises both his arms and spreads them like wings. Red magic circles blossom over his exposed skin simultaneously with the witch's. The floor beneath me lurches and trembles, making me stumble on shaky legs. I hear two voices merge into one. You will not be leaving this place.
Alive. Or dead.
I clench my jaw around the chains of the thrumble. The boy's sick, twisted grin merges with the witch's rageful expression, like parting smoke as he takes a step toward me, brimming with magic. The entire mansion rumbles as I dodge creeping vines, rushing away from the witch and out of the greenhouse on slippery tiles. When I'm back inside, I throw myself through the hidden door and roll onto the floor. Rain soaks my fur and my vision spirals. My senses take a moment to return to me, and when I do, a noise pounds against my skull. The grandfather clock lets out a blaring toll that rings down the halls. I release a shaky breath and squint at how bright everything is now. It's like I've stepped into a completely different house. Whoa! The walls bleed a red so bright it strains my eyes. Crimson runs down the windowless panels, making the space feel like it's closing in on me with every toll of the clock. In addition, my whole body tenses as I look up to the ceiling. Suddenly, I miss having shadows to blend into. Maybe then I wouldn't feel so exposed to the bone-white faces of the dolls that hang in tangles of string. I instinctively try to lower myself to the floorboards. The blood that pumps from them is sticky and warm. Wood and bone rattle above me in reaction to the sound of the thrumble's chains clinking. The chains will attract their attention. My mind starts to spiral. I feel every chime of the clock's bell like a lash. Maybe I can match each swing to the bell. I straighten my neck and hold my head up higher. Every time I heard the witch use the thrumble, it sounded like it was swung in a controlled rhythm. Iron clangs from the top of the spiral staircase. I have to find Dove now. I slowly move forward, then start swinging the thrumble. Wait, click the symbol before the timer runs out. This is what I was afraid of. I was like, there's no way they're gonna suddenly jump me with a quick time event. I don't know why I'm waiting for it like last minute. I'm like, is it better if I wait? Purple smoke swirls around me, and like a parted curtain, the halls I had walked through that very first night reveal themselves. I steadily move forward and continue my search for Dove, and desperately try not to think about the wood that creaks behind me. Above me, the joints of the dolls click with every unnerving twitch. I try to keep my heartbeat steady, my presence non-existent, but a strange noise from above almost makes my paws tangle beneath me. It's all your fault. I pretend I don't hear it. Whoa, I wasn't ready. Damn, I'm not holding my mouse, man. My jaw aches, but I continue to push onwards. Dove is so close, I can feel it. and the footsteps behind me are as well. The dolls above seem to grow restless. He took us here for you. They look for me vigilantly. It's a terrible idea, but I hasten the pace of the swinging thimble. Wee! Stop! You're giving me stress. I gotta jump holding my mouse. My nerves are wound so tight I feel like the pressure in my chest is on the verge of exploding, but I hear her. My ears pick up Dove's small sobs behind a door. The smoke materializes it before me. My heart leaps with relief. We can finally leave together. The noise halts my steps. I stop so abruptly that I drop the thimble. The sound of something tearing turns my blood into ice. It's not paper nor fabric that is torn. It's something much more terrifying. It is space itself forced apart, threads broken and parted, allowing something to come through. The door that bars me from reaching Dove explodes in a mess of splinters. I duck onto the floor as debris showers me. Down the hall, every other door follows the same pattern. I force myself to look up through sawdust that pricks my eyes. Dove cowers on the floor, shielding her head with her arms from the wood that had rained down on her from the explosion. I can see her palms smeared with blood. When I look down to the floor before her, I can faintly make out smudges of crimson under the debris. Dark tears drip down Dove's cheeks as she stares at something with wide eyes. The smell of sulfur pierces through the air, then the growls come. My body trembles in horror. I prayed I would never have to hear them again. The sounds that come from inside the room are the exact same ones that had started this entire nightmare. I hear the tap of sharp nails on the floorboards and jerk back from the door. Bile threatens to crawl at my throat. My ears lay back and my tail crawls between my legs. No, it can't be. Dove looks so small compared to the shadow that stretches over her. I failed. I've
found you, little wolf.
I turn my head slowly. No. I cower back from the witch and the growls that come from Dove's room. I feel my whole body go numb with defeat. Dove cries out as the creature moves from her and the witch's arms light up with spells. He clenches his teeth and blood runs down his nose. Infernal tunnels blow out from the palms of his hands. The creature launches itself at Dove and meets the witch's flames. It burns into nothing and I only watch helplessly as Dove crawls away from the violence until she's curled up against the wall. When the beast is nothing but ashes, the witch casually steps over the cinders and walks over to his daughter.
Come now, little one, they're gone now.
He beckons her toward him, and I watch as she throws her arms around his shoulders and cries into them. The witch picks Dove up in his arms, and then he moves towards me. A wave of nausea rolls through me. I have to run. I step back, then I feel something dig into my flesh. I look down and see black threads wrap around my body. I cry out and try to pull away from it, but it ensnares me completely like a web. I look down to polished shoes and whimper. I raise my gaze up to Dove in desperation. She looks at me through tear-streaked eyes, then looks away. Oh. My ears completely flatten. It's over. The witch reaches for something behind me. In an instant, I see the flash of a dagger.
Don't worry. Your death will be of great use to me.
Betrayal! Betrayal!
My love, finally, after so long, you're back. Wicked one. Come out, my darling. We have so much work to do. I have so much to teach you. Come, look, Dove. This is what weakness looks like. I'll make sure you never know it.
Oh. 7? What do you mean 7? No, wait, I had one good end, one true end, and 6 bad ends. Why is there 7? What do you mean 7? What do you mean I'm gonna write that down. 7. What? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Go back here. And pull her back. I know what will happen the second the ghost phantom arms wrap around her living body. I don't think my heart will be able to take it if I have to hear Dove scream in pain again. Soul or body, she can never reach for either again without getting burned. I wish Dove wasn't constantly reminded of what it feels like to be in pain. It's like everyone that loves Dove cannot show it if it's not in the form of a stinging lash. Is this how it has to be? Dove drops to her knees and cries. I don't care if she hates me for stopping her. Perhaps she truly prefers to say goodbye as her flesh shears, but I won't let her. What was it like when she first lost her? Is this her first or second farewell? Dove must have so much to say, but time races against her. I think if Hypatia's life were an hourglass, it would be down to a single strand of sand. One tiny moment is all that it has been spared for Dove to say a lifetime's worth of words. The ghost fades more and more. I wait for the sound that will signal the end. The sound of that final grain falling. Dove sniffles and presses her forehead into the cool floorboards. In another life, can you still be my mother? My breath hitches. Next time. She wipes the thick tears that drip down her chin. It would be nice if we could be human. And maybe I could be enough for you. And you could be enough as well. Dove lifts her head. Something that looks like a smile cracks through the ghost's features. The ghost face softens in a way that looks proud of Dove, and confusingly, Dove reacts like she's been slapped across the face. Don't look at me like that. Like this is what you wanted. She clenches her fists. You never asked for this. Dove's scream makes my chest tighten painfully, but for some reason I find my brows pinching together in puzzlement. She never asked for this? What does she mean by that? Then it comes. The last grain finally falls, and falls so heavily. It rings so loudly in my skull that my ears go flat. I don't need to look. I just slide up to Dove's side. I can tell by the way she wraps her arms around me so tightly, and how loudly she sobs into my fur, that the ghost of her mother is gone. For good this time. What did I do wrong? I freeze at the crack of every doll's head snapping in my direction. Oh gods. I messed up the timing. I go numb with dread. I blink and every doll now stands on the ground completely surrounding me. You can't abandon us, Dove.
Found you. Now, what to do with you?
The glowing orbs behind the wolf's skull pin me to my spot. He rakes them over the hallway searching for an answer, then his eyes light up when he lands on the crowd of dolls.
Ah, now there's an idea.
He takes a step towards me and I shrink to the floor.
Since you're already her favorite toy, I'll have to make sure she never loses you.
Dove is crying. She hiccups loudly and crushes me against her chest. What's wrong, Dove? I feel so strange. I want to comfort Dove. Dove shifts and places me on the floor. Then she starts to leave. I start to follow her. I can't move. Dove. Wait. Wait, Dove. No. No! Come back! Don't leave me! Dove, come back! Dove! I have to go back through the same option because I messed up the timing. It was just going, I wasn't prepared. It just went one after the other because it's on skip. Oh, never mind. I just die still. Okay. We go left this time. I make my way down to the left hall and come face to face with a complex labyrinth of hallways, staircases, and windows. My chest tightens as I begin to feel overwhelmed, but I hear the chains. I swallow hard, take a deep breath, and open up my ears to the sound. This is our one and only chance for freedom. My toes curl and I dig my nails into the floorboards. I center all the tension in my body into my paws, then break out into a run towards the rattle of metal. I will find you. I fling myself towards the thimble, but I don't make it fast enough. The witch's hand catches onto the fur of my neck and he grips me by the scruff. His eyes look at me with pity.
Nice try, mutt.
I snap my teeth at him, growl, and try to claw his face to get away, but all it does is make him hold me at arm's length.
After all the inconvenience you've caused me.
His eyes darken and I wilt under the pressure of his gaze.
I think it's time you pay for all the inconvenience.
Oh, okay. I find Dove wandering the halls frantically searching for me. When she sees me, she sucks in a sharp breath and starts to rush over to me. I thought he got you. Couldn't distract him for long enough, I'm sorry. I wanted to find you before he did. Her eyes crawl over me. Did you find anything? My tail wags and I start to nod eagerly, then I remember that I'd left the thermal behind in the study with the witch. Damn! Betrayal just because I grabbed the thermal? I thought, like, I grabbed it because I was right there. Like, I was coming to you, and I did, but you got, and it's not that. How is that my fault? I was thinking about us, so I grabbed the thermal while I had the chance. Though I guess Basil did kind of stand there watching. My ears flop and Dove chews on her lip. You know where it is? I look up at her and nod, feeling shameful that I wasn't able to retrieve the thermal fast enough. She gives me a soft smile. Then we'll get it together. Dove's words stroke a fire within me. She stands tall and puts on a brave face as we start to head back together. I lead the way on hurried feet. Dove's footsteps start to follow me, then I hear them stop. I pause and look back in confusion. Dove looks down at the ropes of black string that wrap around her. Oop. Oh, I just die? I think we have to start over. This is the only thing I can think of. We have to start over. Nah, I can deal with the time choices. That's fine. Especially because I can roll back anyways and make a save at 5 seconds. Let us try different thingy. Let's do the cellar door. That sounds like something that would let us die. I find an entrance to a cellar. The wood of the doors look rotten, but it doesn't give when I place 2 paws on it and push my weight into it. My ears flick back in disappointment, though I'm also relieved I didn't go tumbling through the old wood into some unknown depth. Heavy iron handles sit unchained. All I need to do is find a way to open them. I try to squeeze my snout through one of the handles, and as I bring my face closer to the moldy wood, a faint sound comes from below. I immediately freeze. Icy rain weighs down my fur and intensifies the chill that drapes over me like a thick cloak. I swallow, then lean forward to press one of my droopy ears against the door. I listen closely, and serpentine hisses come from the other side of the wood. My breathing stills. My ear remains glued to the door. I try to find sense in the sounds I hear, then... Why you got a cellar full of snakes? Something slams right against the wood where my ears pressed against it, and I fling back in shock. The fur against my neck is completely ruffled, and my tail curls between my legs in fright. I stare at the cellar doors with owlish eyes, half expecting a beast to burst out and eat me, but nothing happens. Still, my racing heart does not calm as I track through the muddy grass in search of some other entrance. Window. I spy a broken window and see a gauzy white curtain thrashing against the glass from the intruding storm. Sadly, it's far too high for me to climb, and there's no way I can jump in this state. I jump at a nearby clap of thunder. And thus I was proven wrong. My eyes blink through the rain, and I squint when the shearing white light of the lightning above reflects on something that sits on the windowsill. I take a step back and see a simple white vase that holds a gathering of withered roses. Perhaps I can take this as proof that the mansion can safely serve as an empty shelter for the night. I turn and look for somewhere else to enter. I bite. The expression on the girl's face scares me into crushing her hand with my fangs. Fire fills my mouth and I jerk away, wiping the girl's blood off my tongue with a paw. Blood should taste like pennies, but hers burns like acid. The girl retracts her hand and I follow its movement. Her lip wobbles as tears leak from her ghoulish eyes. Away from the cage, she cradles her bleeding hand. I feel a sting in my chest, my ears flatten on my head. A deep red stains her white dress. After taking a few deep breaths, she flexes her fingers. She looks at me with still features despite the tears cradled in her lashes. Her head bobs slightly like she's confirmed some theory inside her mind. I recoil and avert my eyes in discomfort. I wonder how long it'll take for you to lose that fire. I feel my body go numb. Something behind me catches the girl's attention. She frowns. I'm fine. I jerk my head back behind me and see nothing. Bile rises in my throat as I watch her chew through the raw flesh and swallow it with a sickly gulp. She covers her mouth with the back of her hand and gags, then looks at me. She smiles at me, her teeth stained and glistening red. What a horrible taste. A thin stream of blood falls from the corner of her mouth. I suppose you like something a little more appetizing. She gags again, then runs out of the room. Well, maybe why'd you do that in the first place if you didn't like it? I hear the sound of her retching from another room. I stare at her blankly. Dove gives me a disappointed look and gnaws on her bottom lip. She fidgets, then puts a hand on her sleeve and looks at the wall unfocused. I tense. That's where I bit her before. Okay. She whispers to herself as though she's resolved something in her thoughts. Her hands hover for a short moment, then she nods. The weight of the collar lifts off my shoulders. Then I bolt. My swift escape shoves Dove aside. Bark louder. Attack. Force her to help. I give up. Wait, what? She frowns and her eyes turn downcast with guilt. I don't know how to get back. Attack her! Attack! My lips peel back viciously. Dove cries out and hauls her legs up on the table, narrowly missing the moment I snap at them with my teeth. What are you doing? I jump up and catch her dress with my fangs. With a thrash of my head, I pull her down onto the floor. I forgot to save here, but whatever's fine. She screams and lands hard on the wooden floorboards. My movements falter at the sound. I look at Dove's crumpled form on the ground, and see her shakily raise herself onto her elbows. So mean. I'm being such an asshole. My ears instantly droop when I see the tears in her eyes. All the fight is immediately extinguished from my body. My body lowers and a whimper slips out. Why did I do that? I feel my eyes sting. I hurt her. Dove sniffles and sits up, then pushes back away from me. I clench my jaw and stand up straight again. I need to apologize. I take a step toward Dove and she instantly flinches. Before I can take another step closer, a screech knocks me back. My heart leaps out of my body when the long-haired ghost manifests out of nowhere with its teeth bared in a hiss. I cry out and flatten myself to the ground. I stare with wide eyes as its lanky body starts to crawl towards me with twitchy movements. God, I constantly want to replace words. It's so annoying. Like, it feels better to me in the moment. Its body clicks and cracks with every tiny motion. My breath comes out in quick pants. Oh god, oh god, oh god. The ghost's body tenses, ready to close the short distance between us. I make a high-pitched whine and shrink closer to the floor. Terror has me completely paralyzed. The ghost releases another blood-curdling screech, then it vanishes. My blood still pounds from adrenaline. My eyes dart around the room sporadically, desperate to confirm that the ghost is gone. I jump when Dove moves into my peripherals. She stands, smooths out her dress, and turns her head away to wipe at her cheeks. Then she turns a cold gaze towards me. There is no way out. I whimper and go back to scratch the door more in desperation. No, I don't want to learn fucking magic! Dove frowns and picks the tome back up, cradling it in her lap. I wish you could talk. It would be nice to have a friend who's interested in the same things as I am. Bite her hand again. I'm a dangerous animal. Dove lets out a blood-curdling scream when I tear my teeth into her arm. Pretty sure I chose this, but it looks like it's different. Chose it before. Red blossoms through the sleeve of her white gown. Blood drips down her arm and onto the floor. Dove pulls back, clutching the wound. I throw my focus back on the doorway, then go hell for leather towards it again. The blood rushes to my head as I leave scratches on the hardwood in my rush to get away. My lungs burn as I finally reach the threshold. I need to get to the roof. I crash into a wall. A growling wall. I make a high-pitched wince and hit the floor. With blurry vision, I look up. Ziri's hulking form dominates the frame of the doorway. It steps into the room and towers over my shaking body. Then it reaches for me. Is this a death end? I have like 3 more that I need to grab. My legs burn when Ziri grabs them. I desperately claw at the floor in a hopeless attempt to get away. Agonized cries escape my throat. Ziri effortlessly drags me off the floor and holds me up until we're face to face. The last thing I see is the ghost's shadowy mouth expanding wide, displaying rows of sharp teeth, then nothing. He ate me! What the frick? I bit her one too many times. I bolt. No! My head is completely blank, save for the thoughts of freedom that now finally lies before me. My heart thunders so desperately. I barely acknowledge the sound of the door to the library opening. All I can think about is the path that has now opened up for me. My vision is a hazy tunnel focusing on the site of the hallway instead of the long and darkly clad legs that stop in front of it. I hear Dove choke on a gasp and the sound paralyzes me. I slide to a stop just before hitting the man that stands in the doorway. Coldness starts to spread through me. I'm too afraid to look up. Though my curiosity is a magnetic force that draws my eyes up anyways. Red eyes pierce through me. I feel like I could suffocate under their intensity.
Well now.
I tremble at the sound of his voice. I recognize it. It's the same one I had heard when I'd first entered this wretched place. A cruel smile stretches over the man's teeth. The dark marks around his eyes wrinkle. I've seen markings like that before. Every witch has them.
Looks like new fodder for the blood caps wandered in while I was away.
The man rubs the back of his hand. My eyes catch on an intricate magic circle tattooed onto it. The circle begins to bleed. Stop, not this one, please! Dove's scream rings in my ears. Then the most unbearable pain I've ever felt bursts through me. My vision turns sideways and the taste of iron floods into my mouth. The edges start to darken. I can faintly hear Dove sobbing and I feel small hands run through my fur. No. As everything begins to fade into nothing, my eyes lock onto the witch's scarlet eyes.
Don't get so easily attached to things, Dove. You know that only makes it harder to let them go.
In my final breath, the last thing I remember is the dampness of Dove's tears on my fur, before her presence detaches from me and disappears with the sound of bare feet running away. My face falls at the sight of the necklace. It reminds me too much of a collar. I press my head down between my paws. The necklace shakes slightly, then Dove lowers it onto her lap. It hurts. I can't get myself to see what face she's making. I wasn't even like that hurt when she didn't help me in the one end. Okay, fine, I guess. I can't be mad at her for it after all this time. I just wanted to. Dove lets out a small whimper. Then she holds the beaded necklace up and rips it apart. Oh, I'm sorry. I flinch and sit up away from her. Glass beads explode and crack as I scatter all over the floor. Metal clangs right in front of me where the leaf pendant falls. When I look up again, I just catch sight of Dove disappearing between the curtains of her bed. My teeth latch onto Dove's skirt and I dig my claws to the floorboards to anchor myself. It's no use, though. Black tears drip down to Dove's chin. Odette, stop! I hear the sound of shearing flesh where Odette's hands hold her fiercely. My nails start to lose their grip and I'm pulled along with them. I trip and Dove's dress is released from my grip. No. What do I do? Only one solution comes to mind. Odette's remains. Oh no, I don't know. Oh, I don't want to see it. Time stops. I watch Dove's dress start to billow as she falls out of the window. Then a dark shadow moves in front of me. Oh god, Ziri's still alive. Ziri materializes out of nowhere and grabs onto Dove, pulling her back from the window. Dove shrieks at his contact and falls onto the floor, landing on her burns from the previous day. The ghost whines in distress and kneels in front of her. She winces away from its touch. Violent knocking startles me. I look and see the handle of the door shaking, then I look back at Dove. Ziri has disappeared. She wants me to leave her alone, so I will. Dove plops back down and sucks in a sharp breath. She tugs her blanket up to her ears. I take that as a sign that I should leave her alone. I pull back from the bed and pat away. I give Dove one more glance, unsure about leaving her alone when she's hurt, but she told me to go away. I curl onto my blanket on the floor and watch the rain beat down on the window. The room is silent, but only for a moment. Like a creeping predator, a strange buzzing cuts the soundless ambience out of nowhere. It sounds like flies. Perhaps she's right. Maybe it's true. Only a monster can love Dove. I look down at my paws and I know for a fact that if I were to bleed, my blood would burn just like hers. But nothing will be different on the outside. After all, there's no such thing as a normal childhood for children like us. I almost missed because my keyboard was in the way! And I just died. Cool. Ooh, new stuff. I have to save her. Dove startles as I leap over chunks of wood until I reach her. I don't look at the beast. I slide under Dove's torso and push her up off the floor. She gasps, then follows my lead and rises up on her own. My body moves completely separated from my mind as I drag Dove with me by her sleeve. We barrel down the halls, hindered by enchantments no more, until the wide open frame of the kitchen's back door is right in front of us. The witch's scream echoes through the entire mansion. Dove! The floor beneath us trembles. I see Dove's feet hesitate behind me right at the threshold. So I get behind her and shove her through the door by throwing all of my body weight at her. We tumble outside in a messy heap. Dove scrapes her cheek on the dirt and gets gravel embedded on her palms. After taking a moment to recover, she looks at her scratched hands in awe. I pick up the sound of shoes heavily stomping down the stairs inside, and I get up again. Dove's neck starts to twist back, but I grab her sleeve and pull her forward. My eyes meet her watery ones. Run, Dove, and don't stop. Dove. Oh, wait. He's actually speaking. Dove. Dove. Basil. Move a little more to the right. I roll my eyes and settle down in the grass beside Dove's reclined length. She whines, and I stifle a smile as I lift my hand to shield her face from the light. She lays in the middle of a grassy hill surrounded by books and notes that flutter in the breeze. Your cheeks are burnt. If you're gonna fall asleep outside while reading, you should use your books to block the sun. What if I like my face feeling warm? Dove flips over onto her stomach and pouts at me. But speaking of sleep... Wait, they're older! I could have used older voices. Oop. Oop! Little babies. They're just little babies to me. And also we get to see Basil. Oh. I yelp when she reaches out and pinches my cheek. Nell told me you've been spending too much nights working and not resting. I wince at her scoldings and give her a sheepish smile. I just balance things out. You sleep too much. My eyes flick away. Besides, I like to stay up just to make sure no monsters crawl out from under your bed. I throw her a hopefully convincing grin, then brush my knuckles against her sunburned cheeks, seeking forgiveness when I see it's not working. Dove is far too perceptive for my own good. She gives me a knowing look, then tips her nose up at me. Enough. Lie with me and enjoy the lovely weather. Feels like such a waste to spend just a nice day sleeping, though. Whoever said sleeping wasn't productive. Dove shoves my shoulders back and sits up beside me. I'll even make you a pillow to rest your weary head on. I raise my brow curiously, then feel a tickle from something growing beneath my head. My eyes shut, appreciating the plushness. Then they blow wide. I sit up so quickly my head spins. I look down at the ivy that had sprouted from completely nothing and snap my neck towards Dove. I glance at a bleeding magic circle on the back of her hand, then back up to her face. She grins at me warmly. What did you just do? I used magic. You're not a full-fledged witch. Her grin only stretches wider. I figured out the secret. I look at her incredulously. Huh? Dove shoves me back down and lies next to me shoulder to shoulder. How? I try to sit up again, but Dove places a heavy hand on my chest. I'll tell you when you wake up. I'm not tired. Don't make me put you in a year-long enchanted sleep. Fine, fine. Now close your eyes and I'll treat you to a hint. I sigh, then do as she says. My eyes flutter shut. A cool breeze brushes through the hair on my forehead. The heat of the sun makes my cheeks flush, and the sound of cicadas plays like a soothing hum. I feel one of Dove's hands intertwine with my own as she shifts closer to me. A shadow moves over my eyes. When I peek and eye open, I see Dove's hand hovering over my face to block the brightness. This feeling. I feel her soft breath against my neck. I move my head to lean it against hers. This was all I needed all along. Hey, look. You're here in this book. That's the sun. Good end. Look at them! Oh, I was not expecting we were gonna see Basil's face. Who is dog? Are they both dog? Or... That's the sun. Yes? You're here as well. That's a star. And? Oh, dusk and dawn. And also here. They're everywhere in these pictures, just like their fur. I swept last time. It's your turn. I know, but after, let's go for a night walk. Want to go stargazing again? Every night, with you. Got the good end. But what is the true end? And what is it? Did they fuck up and accidentally wrote 7? Because VII is 7. Did they mean 6? So there isn't a 7, it's actually a 6? We'll check after I figure out how to get the true end. I don't know how, but we'll figure it out. I don't need a walkthrough. I'm smart. I know what I'm doing. I don't even know what happened. I hate doing this so much. Why can't I skip it? Why can't I be all like, yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. I've been through this multiple times already. Too many times, in fact. Oh shit, here we go, here we go, here we go. Oh my god. Oh my god. I don't know what to do. Can't leave without Dove. I have to get out of here. I don't know what to do sounds a lot like the basic ending. So I'm gonna do the douche ending and I'm getting out of here. Bye. I can't save her. I trip over chunks of wood as I step away. Dove's eyes swing to me and her crying face is the last thing I see. Basil? I'm sorry, baby girl, but I gotta do the same thing you did to me when you looked away. It's my turn to look away. Before I spin away and run, the sound Dove makes pierces right through me. As my body carries me away, her voice drowns out all other senses. Don't leave me! I'm sorry! I have to do what you did to me! I have to get the douche ending out of the way because I know it's gonna make me hurt. Her scream is so raw with desperation that it makes my mind shut down. I whimper my way through the entirety of the house. No, what am I doing? Whatever Dove had done has completely shattered the glamour that had enchanted the entire mansion, leaving it nothing more than cold and dusty. Wind breaks through the windows and howls like it had been waiting 1,000 years for this moment. It moves against me and makes my skin feel like ice. My head feels like it's underwater, like I'm stuck in a dream where running feels like trying to move through quicksand. The world around me moves in slow motion. Time is stretched into an agonizing flow that forces me to memorize every little detail as punishment for the grave sin I'm committing. Every little chip and fragment of wood embedded into the pads of my paws, the burn of the wind in my eyes, the smell of flowers and old books that start to lose out to the smell of wet decay. My lungs burn, starving for air. My eyes observe every crack in the floorboards and every tear in the wallpaper. The back of my skull pounds with an overwhelming need to cry. But this prison I've trapped myself in denies me like a punishment. Outside the windows, the moon sits against a black night sky surrounded by glittering white stars. The light that shines on the floor lights my path to freedom, but in my heart, this does not feel like freedom at all. I have to go back. When I reach the kitchen, the doorframe is empty of anything that could be in my way. I can't just leave her. I scream against the walls of my mind, but I don't stop. I can't stop, because I've never known anything more terrifying than the beast Dove had brought in. As I race for the exit, I accidentally slam my shoulder into the leg of the kitchen table and send a bowl of something tumbling onto the ground. Purple flowers rain down on me, and I quickly shake them off and continue on. I run through pieces of broken wood and break through a wall of damp summer air. When I feel grass beneath my feet again, I stop dead in my tracks. I take in deep gulps of the humidity, my ears flick at the sounds of the dry lawn crunching under my paws. I'm free. Then a painful surge of emotion claws its way up my throat, and I release a heart-wrenching howl so full of relief and sorrow. The pressure inside my skull feels like it could unmake me. Oh my god. That's not because I'm tearing up. I don't know what happened, okay? I swear. I swear I'm not crying or anything. I'm being real for this one time. I'm being for reals. I cry in the only way I can and race for home. The sun only just begins to peek out from the horizon by the time I scratch the door of my grandmother's cottage with mindless desperation. I whine and cry when I hear footsteps start to approach the door. Be gone, you critter, before you leave scratch marks all over my door. My head hurts so much with agony and joy when I hear her voice. The second the door swings open, I barrel into the house and cry against my grandmother's skirt. I breathe in the smell of herbs and fresh linens. What in the hells? What's got a tiny thing like you so shaken? I see her squint down at me, and when she looks into my eyes, they flash with recognition. She drops to her knees and takes my head in her hands. It can't be. Her eyes search the depths of mine. When she finds what she seems to be looking for, she shoots off the floor and starts rummaging through her shelves. I hear her already hissing out scoldings under her breath, and I bow my head shamefully. Unbelievable. She works quickly, gathering everything she needs, a dusty old journal of spells and chalk. The circle she draws is similar to the one I had drawn myself, only everything seems to be in reverse. I stare at it in dread and anticipation. After everything, I can't believe I would even try to delay this. I've just been trapped for so long, I feel like it'll be so hard learning how to walk on 2 feet again. With haste, child. Come, let's get you fixed. My grandmother waves me over to the circle with the small dagger she holds in my hand. Her hand? ? It's supposed to be her hand. I don't have hands, I have paws. I take a deep breath and move onto the circle 1 paw at a time. It's so cold. The necklace Dove had made for me had been ripped apart during the transformation. Each precious bead sits scattered all over the floor, reflecting a face I've almost forgotten. My grandmother silently throws a blanket over my shivering bare shoulders and closes it tightly around me. I can see her hands tremble as they move from the quilt to hold my cheeks between her palms. I release a shaky exhale and shut my eyes, preparing for the lecture of my life. Where have you been, Basil? My eyes pop open and mouth drop in shock. Every tear I haven't been able to shed now spills out uncontrollably. I choke out a sob and throw myself into the warmth of my grandmother's arms, then cry out a lifetime's worth of tears. It takes a long time for my sobs to bubble into weak hiccups. My grandmother pats down my hair, then her hand pauses. I sniffle and curl up against her chest. Gods. My shoulders jump at her sudden exclaim, and I lean back to see something she holds through swollen eyes. She quickly drops a purple flower onto her lap, then pulls a handkerchief out of her pocket to pick it back up. Why in the hells are you covered in wolfsbane? When I try to speak, my voice comes out hoarse. The rough state of my unused vocals makes me cough out my words. Wolfsbane? That's the flower the witch was gathering. It must have clung to me from when I knocked over that bowl in the kitchen. A lick of dread enters my veins. My grandmother stands and quickly checks me for any more stray blooms. You didn't touch it with your skin, did you? It's highly toxic. My eyes grow to the size of saucers and I shoot up from the floor. Wait, is that the jelly we've been eating? Toxic? The quilt that was covering me falls and she circles around me. Good, you have no more on you. My cheeks burn and I quickly wrap myself in the blanket once more. What does it do? My grandmother throws the lone wolfsbane into a small jar already filled with a few of the same flowers. A long, unpleasant list of things. Tingling at best, paralysis at mild, death at worst. My heart drops. My mind takes a moment to process her words. Why would such a poison be in the kitchen? I freeze. The door of the cottage is still swung open. I hear the old hinges creak, then a soft coo. Slowly I turn my head to it. In the brightness of the rising sun, a little dove hops in front of the entrance to the cottage. I watch it curiously, entranced by its sudden appearance. Then my eyes are drawn to a small patch on its chest. Red blooms right in the center of the dove's white chest, and I feel a chilling blanket of anxiety drape over me. Dove. Not just any dove. That one's known as the bleeding heart dove. I feel the world lurch sideways. My grandmother cocks her head at me and raises a brow, then startles when I suddenly throw myself at her. Tears prick at my eyes and I cling to her arms desperately. We have to go back. Shifty eyes. Is this the true end? You will be explaining everything to me after this, boy. Honestly, to be doing this in your state, what have you been up to? Nothing good. The sun is high in the sky when we finally reach the mansion. It's strange. Seeing it so bathed in light from the outside, it gives off a completely different aura. A hollow one. I feel nauseated after the trek back under the merciless heat. At least the cicadas are far less offensive to my human ears. I lean my hand against the doorframe of the back door and stare inside. Part of me is terrified to take a step inside. I fear the nightmare will start all over again. But I have to find her. I stumble through the threshold and nothing happens. It's only been hours since I was last here, but it feels like it's been weeks. Without hesitation, I bolt through the house in search of her. I slip on splintered wood and glass and I swallow hard. My grandmother yells out at me as I take off without her. Oi, slow down, Basil. My shoes tap on the floorboards as I run down the halls, and I throw my head into rooms for signs of Dove. My voice cracks as I call out for her. Dove! Dove! My legs feel like jelly, but I force them to move. I search every room, replaying my history with them in my head as if they're relics of my past and not places I had lived in less than a day ago. Every room feels foreign from my human perspective, and the more I search, the more panic spreads through me. Please, please, where are you, Dove? My shoes skid to a stop in front of her room. The last time I couldn't find her, she was just hidden away behind the curtains of her bed. My jaw tightens and I rush into the room. My hands grab fistfuls and my heart pounds in my chest. My mind pictures her there asleep, alive, just waiting for me to come back for her. Will she forgive me for running away? I tear open the curtains, then stagger back a step. I feel a tear slide down my cheek. I hear my grandmother's slow steps approach the bedroom from behind me. What a deprived place. I see her brush a hand against the frame of the door from the corner of my eye as I stare into the empty bed before me. It's practically a void of magic with how little there is here. She takes a step into the room. Just what on earth happened? She suddenly lurches back and places a hand on her chest. Hells. I glance at her and furrow my brows in confusion. She stares at the floor in horror. When I follow her gaze, all the blood drains from my face. My eyes grow wide and I gape at the pool of dried blood that sticks to the floor. Right in the middle of a large magic circle. I drop to my knees in front of it and touch the blood with the tips of my fingers. Tears gather in my eyes. Dove? Dove's heart. After he saves me from the hounds, he makes me tea. As the poison takes effect, he draws a circle around my frozen form. I can't do anything, so in my head I say a protection spell my mother had taught me. I didn't believe it was a real spell, but it worked. It brought him to me the first time I used it. So it has to work again, right? I stare at the doorway and start the spell. Sins and sunlight. My stomach hurts. Tea, time, and tea. He dusts the chalk off with his hands. Altars and art. I see the flash of a dagger. Bleeding, hearts, and Basil.
I have to do this. I'm sorry.
And Basil. I watch the door waiting for him to appear.
Forgive me, Dove.
He gently moves me onto my back and I stare up at the point of a blade. The steel reflects my fragile mortality back at me. This is the closest I've ever felt to human. No. No. Tears well up in my eyes as he raises the dagger. And Basil! Basil! The dagger plunges straight into my heart. Dying feels like falling into water. I float in cold nothing, and for some reason, I am not alone. He says I can call him Belphie. I tell him his name is too long. He laughs. His laugh is a loud, patient thing, like he has all the time in the world to unleash it. Then the water is pulled from under me. My father looks confused when I get back up. My blood covers his hands and clothes. A shadow engulfs him. I turn my head and squint at the sunlight that has broken past the horizon line. Outside my window, a man hovers in the air with bat-like wings that stretch out behind him. I blink, trying to see if he is nothing more than a trick of the light. His shoes tap as he steps into the room and kneels before me. The smell of roses is so familiar. It's like he's walked straight out of a dream I had forgotten as soon as I woke up. He takes a chunk of my hair in his hand and smiles softly.
Look at that. It's like it's made from pure starlight.
Light glints off his sharp canines.
We match.
I look down at the white strands he holds, then up at him. Horns curl out from the sides of his head. That's mine? I bite down on my lip and my chest starts to grow tight. I look up at the stranger with round eyes. Am I dead? A voice from behind startles me back into reality.
What the hell is going on?
The demon's expression falls and he stands, taking me with him in his arms. I go stiff as a board in his tattooed arms. When he notices, he only shoots me a quick wink and faces my father. I stare at him with pinched brows, but my body relaxes slightly in his hold. Why does it feel like I've known him for a long time?
Apologies. I know we had a little arrangement.
It's weird that there's a voice now. I see Belphie run his tongue over the points of his sharp canines and he grins.
But did you know
that this is my daughter? The air rushes out of my lungs when Belphie suddenly flies forward until he stands over my father's fallen form. The demon's vermilion eyes glow dangerously as he leans forward. I've never seen my father cower like this before. Satisfaction and embarrassment sweep through me. I wonder if Belphie can read my emotions because his mouth stretches in a toothy smile.
traumatized daughters are much more interesting to make deals with?
And damn, he got some thick-ass thighs. Look, do you see that? I don't know if it's just because, like, the type of pants he's wearing, but look at those things. Though, I'll be honest, the dad is more my style. I like the way the dad looks a lot better than this guy. He looks like a weird combination of, like, a demon. Oh god, look, what is... Okay, I'm gonna be honest, he's getting hella, like, negative points. They're, like, decreasing the longer I look at him, because his whole outfit is ugly as hell. He also looks like a weird combination of, like, what I expect a Japanese demon to look like, and then a combination of a Western demon. It's, like, the swirling pattern and, like, the way his hair is. But he has, like, the sides are cut, and he has this weird, like, swirly shit in his hair, and it's just... He kind of be ugly. I'm gonna be honest, he kind of be ugly. This is a disappointment, kind of sad. The dad is way hotter. He also has facial hair, so... And this man is smooth. The demon straightens.
And really now, can you imagine how boring it would be if I just let you have your wife back after sacrificing your own daughter?
I freeze as I take in his words. He did all that just to bring her back? I feel my throat start to close on me, and I start to choke down a sob. Am I really not enough? Belphie continues on as I start to shake. I feel his grip on my shoulders slightly tighten. He looks down at my father with scorn.
No. It's time to start a whole new game of cat and mouse. Can you guess who will be playing who?
My father goes pale. His eyes meet mine. I see blood well up on the back of his hand. I flinch back in alarm from the flames that erupt towards us and twist my head into the demon's chest. I feel the heat brush against my cheek and expect to feel the pain of 1,000 needles, but it does not meet my flesh. Belphie doesn't flinch away from the flames. When I turn my head, I see him absorb the blaze with nothing but the palm of his hand. He gives my father a sour look. I quiver in his arms and stare in disbelief. Tears drip down my face.
Cheater.
My lips tremble, then twist into a sneer. You tried to kill me. I thrash in Belphie's arms, trying to claw my way to him.
Little dove. He didn't just try, he succeeded.
He looks at me in shame and regret, as if he has any right to feel that way. How could you? Belphie's arms restrain me, but for a moment, I feel him slip on purpose. I finally get close enough to tear my nails down his face before I'm pulled away. He cries out and slaps a hand over the blood that now runs down his face. He backs away and looks at me with shock. My vision goes red with malice, and all the hurt and betrayal I feel pours out of my mouth in a banshee scream. I'll kill you! Belphie reels me back again.
Now, little bird. A little taste for blood is all you get. For now. Be good and you can have more when you're ready.
Belphie's whole design is so ugly, dude. I pant from exertion and continue trying to break free. It doesn't match. The whole everything. Belphie cradles me against his broad chest tightly and smiles down at me. When he looks back at my father, it completely melts away.
You.
He flinches as the demon focuses his cold gaze on him.
Start running. or we will catch up too quickly.
He looks at me one more time. He looks at me almost like a parent would before he hides behind his wolf skull.
Dove? Dove.
No.
Dove?
I guess the first one is gonna have to do. I snarl at him like a wounded beast. Crimson eyes widen, fists curl, and his shoulders thump forward. Bro, you got the audacity to be like, Dove, I'm your father. Why are you looking at me like that? Like, bitch, you just killed her for a ritual. His body lurches forward with a violent cough, and I quickly avert my eyes, pretending I don't see the blood he expels onto his hand. From the corner of my eye, I see him look up at me one more time. Then he disappears into a wisp of smoke. The second he disappears, everything slams down on me all at once. Exhaustion weighs me down, and all I can do is flop against Belphie. My eyes squeeze shut, and I try to lock up the tears that threaten to spill over. Right now, there's only one thing I want. I want to go outside. Belphie's chest vibrates as he laughs at my request.
Shall we go stretch those wings, little dove?
I stand in the light that pours through the door. The door to outside. I can feel the warmth that radiates off the sunlit floorboards and curl my toes into it. Belphie stands in the doorway, waiting patiently for me.
Well, what are you waiting for?
For it to disappear again, to wake up from this dream, I don't know, something terrible, anything that will make a fool out of me for having hope. A gentle breeze blows towards me. It smells like the forest. I grip onto the skirt of my dress like it's a life rope and I dangle over an endless abyss. Then Belphie holds out his hand towards me.
Come now. There is much to do.
I jolt. My heart jumps at his words. I barely register the first step I take towards him, but I feel the next one, the one after even more so. Each new step feels defiant. As I grow closer, my confidence starts to build like the crescendo of a song. Tears prick at the corner of my eyes. I can feel even more warmth from the sun, and before I know it, I'm running recklessly towards freedom. I wait for the door to slam in my face, for everything to wash away into nothing like a cruel jest. But despite that, I let a feeling bubble up within me. Hope. I feel like the only dove who's ever been without it. As I burst through the door and rush into the tall grass, I let it wrap around my heart like a sheet of steel. And I won't let anything take it from me again. Whoa! We got all the CGs, but I'm gonna load back and we're gonna check some other stuff. I don't know what to do.
I found you, little wolf.
Oh, yeah, I think this is the same. Red roses. And then can't leave. Okay, and that's the good end. Damn, that's crazy! Thank you to Min for her help coding the CG gallery, and thank you, Cress, for letting me use a quote from Intertwine as the romance novel Dove reads. Most of all, thank you to Viv, my editor, who helped me make my writing readable and always stepped up to help juice up a scene when needed. Could not have made this game without your incredible support. And lastly, to you who played this game, thank you for playing the first game I ever started. Okay, so I'm assuming that, because the game page does say there's 6, so I'm assuming it was an error on their part. Now, let us look between the good and true ending. This is a horror game. I understand not everything has to be a happy ending. And it does actually make way more sense that things ended the way they did with the true end. This is going to take Dove down a dark route. We've seen her already show like a darker side when she was talking about magic and she was sort of like craving power. And now that she's in the hands of Belphie, she's going to be basically under his wing most likely. I don't know what the whole mother's deal was. Like, I don't know how she died. I don't know what her, like, who she is as a person, because what clues we got from the father and how she acted when she was revived are very, like, this woman was not right. In fact, she seemed way more sinister, and it seemed a lot like she didn't love her daughter. Dude, was it really worth it? I mean, like, she was already dead. You could have gone away. But I can, like, guesstimate it, not the most healthiest relationship, but we're also talking about, people who probably couldn't fit into society very well. They probably had a very small, like, social circle, because you're very different from humans, and the humans probably talk hella smack and are just like, oh my god, that's a fucking witch over there. Don't trust that person. They're gonna turn your insides into worms. Oh. Dicentra. Especially in gardening, a bleeding heart, a plant of the Genesis. Dicentra. I think for what it is, it was pretty detailed in itself without being super, like, without getting into it. Because I know they hinted at the way everyone's died. But I'm also curious if, about, like, like a little bit more of the details. Because we know that everyone cared a lot for Dove. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of don't remember how Ziri died. It was because they were protecting her, right? That's how they died? But, so we have Ziri, who I believe died protecting her. Odette died. Odette was likely killed because she was trying to bring Dove outside. I don't know who the Crow Kid was, or why exactly they were here. Because it's not... I think they did have a full staff, it's just that these ghosts had a stronger bond. I don't know if all ghosts have to have a piece of their remains. I kind of want more lore. Like, I want to know, like, how everything got to this point. Like, we have hints of how it got to this point, but I just want to know more about the mom, really, and her influence over everything and what her motives were. Because she taught Dove the spell to, like, to call for Belphegor. Because Dove mentioned that before, that she used the spell and it summoned him, and that's why he was even in the vicinity to begin with. And then she used it again to call for him. I think it was a combination between her saying this spell and the usage of her sacrifice. I think the spell summoned him, but the sacrifice allowed him to scoop her up. But does this mean the dad was a little shit when he was a kid? If this is like his proxy of a sort. Well, he's so handsome. Oh, I hate this. Why is he so handsome? He's just my type. I hate this. Why does he have to suck but also be my type at the same time? It's sad though, because like they bonded so much during the time that they were together. And it's sad that, like, you know, in his fear, he had to run away. Like, I don't blame him for what occurred. For his choice. So while it sucks that he had to leave Dove, who already is in a state of like, I'm not loved and I'm being abandoned by the two people that I hold any affection for. Like, it's either one or both of you are going to die. in this situation. Like, there's nothing you could really do. And it's sad. And I hated every fucking point of having to be mean to her. I hated it so much. Cause Dove is like a sweet kid. Like, she wasn't like a little shit like some like child characters portray, and they want you to be all like, oh, feel bad for them. And you're just like, I don't know, they're an asshole. I don't think I want to feel bad. In fact, I'm happy to leave. I didn't feel like I legit did not feel any resentment. I was kind of like sad that like in the one of the bad endings, she just looks at you and then looks away, and it's just like, bro, no, wait, Dove, please, you don't understand. I had a plan, and I didn't know he was gonna use. I didn't know he was gonna nab you like that. I wasn't prepared. I'm never prepared. Magic is crazy. And I'm not in my home territory. I'm just a dog. I'm a baby. If you enjoyed Dicentra, you should also check out their other games in the meantime. Or if you don't do any of that, then I hope you have a good day and a good night. And I hope to see you in the next stuff that comes out. Catch you later. Bye. I'm thirsty. I want drink juice. You know what? I kind of want to try the thing that they ate, the jelly stuff. Isn't it floral jelly? Damn, I can't remember right now. I just remember purple. Bye.